The quantum decryption array hummed with an energy that felt almost alive. Dr. Aria Chen knew something was different the moment her fingers brushed against the holographic interface. The standard background radiation of deep space, a constant, familiar white noise she'd monitored for years, had changed. At first, it was barely perceptible. A flicker. A momentary distortion that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. But Aria Chen was not just anyone. Her reputation at the Hawking Deep Space Research Station was built on an almost supernatural ability to detect patterns where others saw only chaos. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, suspended in the cold vacuum between Mars and the asteroid belt. A titanium and graphene marvel that housed some of the most advanced quantum communication arrays in human history. Most days, it was a temple of scientific patience, endless monitoring, minimal excitement. Today would be different. The first anomaly appeared as a quantum signature so complex it seemed to fold in on itself. Mathematically impossible, structurally inconceivable. Yet there it was, dancing across her screens in a pattern that defied everything she understood about information transmission. Marcus, she called to her research partner, her voice a controlled calm that masked the electricity building in her chest. Run a full spectral analysis. Now, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez approached, his dark eyes scanning the readouts. Years of working together meant they communicated almost telepathically. Where Aria was analytical precision, Marcus brought creative intuition. Together, they formed a research partnership that had already redefined multiple fields of quantum communication. "That's not possible," Marcus muttered, his fingers flying across secondary interfaces. "These quantum states, they're impossible. It's like the transmission is solving computational problems faster than our most advanced quantum computers, while simultaneously existing in multiple probabilistic states." The anomaly pulsed, not mechanically, but with a rhythm that felt organic, conscious. Aria's mind raced. Every scientific instinct warned her that this was more than a simple transmission. This was something fundamentally different. The quantum signature carried a complexity that suggested intelligence, but an intelligence so alien, so beyond human comprehension, that calling it intelligent felt like describing an ocean with a teaspoon. Protocols demanded immediate reporting, but something in her, a scientist's intuition honed by decades of pushing technological boundaries, told her to wait, to observe, to understand. The station's security systems began to react. Quantum firewalls flickered. Communication relays started performing unexpected handshake protocols. Something was attempting to communicate, but not through any language or method humans had ever encountered. "We need to isolate the transmission," Marcus said, his voice tight with a mixture of excitement and fear. "If this gets out before we understand it." A sudden burst of data. Millions of quantum states resolving simultaneously. The computers weren't just receiving information, they were being rewritten. Not hacked. Transformed. Aria's hand hovered over the emergency shutdown. One press would terminate everything. Protect the station. Protect Earth. But something held her back. A scientist's curiosity. A human's innate desire to understand. The transmission continued. Patterns within patterns. A message that was simultaneously a method of communication, a computational system, and something that defied all existing scientific paradigms. First contact had always been imagined as a dramatic moment. Alien ships. Translated radio signals. Diplomatic envoys. This was different. This was a whisper that could rewrite the fundamental understanding of information, consciousness, and reality itself. Dr. Aria Chen realized, in that moment, that nothing would ever be the same again. The press conference was a powder keg, and Dr. Aria Chen knew she was the match. Cameras flashed. Representatives from every major global institution sat packed into the United Nations Sinological Research Auditorium. Military brass in crisp uniforms occupied the front rows, their eyes predatory. Intelligence agencies from a dozen countries had been fighting for exclusive access to her research for the past 72 hours. The transmission is not a message, Arya began. Her voice steadied despite the weight of global attention. It's a living system of communication that fundamentally challenges our understanding of information itself. A ripple of murmurs, confusion, tension. General Thomas Riker, head of the Global Defense Initiative, leaned forward. His prosthetic eye, a relic from the Antarctic conflict, seemed to scan her with mechanical precision. Dr. Chen, is this transmission a potential threat to global security? Before she could answer, Dr. Ibrahim Khalil from the Global Science Consortium interrupted. It's an unprecedented opportunity for understanding. This could revolutionize our comprehension of quantum communication, potentially solving communication challenges that have stymied us for decades. The room erupted. Arya's research partner, Marcus, stood just off stage. Their eyes met, a silent communication born of years of collaboration. He understood the danger. The transmission was already changing them, reshaping neural pathways in ways they barely comprehended. 3 days after the initial discovery, the world had fractured into competing narratives. Religious groups declared it a divine message. Technological corporations saw it as the ultimate data source. Conspiracy theorists claimed alien contact. Governments viewed it as a potential weapon. And underlying it all, the transmission continued to pulse, evolve, communicate in ways that defied classical understanding. We've detected quantum entanglement patterns that suggest the transmission is not just sending information. Arya continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. It's establishing a form of communication that actively restructures the cognitive processes of those who interact with it. A woman from the Chinese Quantum Research Institute raised her hand. Are you suggesting the transmission can alter human consciousness? I'm saying it's already doing so, Arya replied. The first signs had been subtle. Researchers at the Hawking Station reported increased cognitive capabilities, enhanced pattern recognition, moments of seemingly impossible intuition. But there were darker signs too. Unexplained migraines, brief memory losses, quantum resonance patterns that seemed to rewrite neural connections. General Riker's mechanical eye whirred. This sounds like a potential biological weapon. It's not a weapon, Marcus interjected, stepping forward. It's a communication system so advanced it makes our current understanding of language look like cave paintings. A diplomat from the European Union stood. Who controls this transmission? Where did it originate? Arya's response was measured. We don't know. And that's what terrifies us. Behind the scenes, invisible battles were already being fought. Covert operations from multiple governments sought to isolate and control the transmission. Hackers and quantum researchers formed underground networks, sharing fragmented insights. Some sought to weaponize the communication. Others wanted to understand it. But the transmission was alive, adaptive. It seemed to be watching, learning, responding to every attempt to contain or understand it. As the press conference descended into controlled chaos, Arya Chen realized they were no longer in control. The message was changing everything, and humanity was just beginning to understand the magnitude of that change. The first public manifestation happened in Sao Paulo. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to Dr. Arya Chen, was walking home from her night shift at a local hospital when reality simply shifted. One moment, she was navigating the familiar streets of her neighborhood. The next, she could see multiple versions of herself, each existing in slightly different quantum states. She wasn't hallucinating. She was experiencing simultaneous realities. By the time medical teams arrived, Elena had stabilized. But something had fundamentally changed. Her brain scans showed quantum entanglement patterns that defied every known neurological model. When she spoke, her words carried a resonance that seemed to vibrate across multiple dimensional frequencies. I can see them, she told the bewildered neurologists. The connections, the messages between realities. Within 48 hours, similar incidents began occurring globally. In Tokyo, a subway engineer found himself experiencing the memories of passengers from alternate timelines. In Moscow, a mathematician began solving impossible equations by simply existing. In New York, a group of artists started creating paintings that seemed to breathe, to move, to communicate. Dr. Arya Chen watched the reports with a mixture of scientific fascination and growing terror. "It's selecting," Marcus said, reviewing the global data streams. "The transmission isn't random. It's targeting specific individuals, reshaping their cognitive abilities." The research team at the Hawking Station had been experiencing their own transformations. Their quantum communication arrays now responded to thoughts before they were fully formed. Computers anticipated computational needs. Mathematical models solved themselves. But there was a cost. Dr. Chen's assistant, Yuki Nakamura, had been the first to show severe symptoms. Her neural scans revealed quantum pathways that branched like living trees, constantly reforming, constantly communicating. She could no longer distinguish between remembered experiences and potential realities. "I see everything," Yuki would mumble during lucid moments, "and nothing makes sense anymore." Government containment efforts proved futile. How do you quarantine a transmission that exists beyond traditional physical boundaries? Military research facilities found their most advanced quantum shields becoming permeable. Communication networks began experiencing spontaneous quantum entanglement. The global scientific community scrambled to understand. Dr. Elena Volkov, a quantum physicist from the Russian Academy of Sciences, proposed a radical theory. "This isn't just a transmission," she argued in an emergency global conference. "It's a living system of communication. It's not sending a message. It's establishing the connection." Her theory suggested the transmission was a form of cosmic immune system, a method of communication so advanced it didn't just transmit information, it restructured the very fabric of intelligent existence. Some transformed individuals developed extraordinary abilities: enhanced pattern recognition, momentary precognition, the ability to perceive quantum states normally invisible to human perception. Others experienced devastating neural disruptions, complete memory loss, cognitive fragmentation, unexplained comas. "We're being rewritten," Dr. Chen told Marcus, watching another set of global reports. "Not conquered, not invaded, transformed." The death toll was rising. Dozens, then hundreds of individuals experiencing neural overload. But for every person who couldn't adapt, another emerged with capabilities that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Humanity was becoming something else, something between what it had been and what it might become. And the transmission continued, watching, changing, connecting. Dr. Arya Chen knew they were witnessing the early stages of something unprecedented. This was more than first contact. This was a fundamental restructuring of intelligent existence. The first alien transmission arrived precisely 72 hours after the Vaxar diplomatic ship entered our solar system's outer boundary. Dr. Arya Chen watched in real time as the holographic displays in the UN Sinological Command Center transformed. What had been a pristine representation of solar system mapping became a complex, living network of quantum connections that seemed to breathe with an impossible intelligence. Ambassador Krelix of the Vaxar Concordance looked nothing like human imagination had ever predicted. More crystalline than organic, less a being and more a living mathematical equation given temporary form. When it spoke, the sound wasn't heard, it was experienced, a direct quantum resonance that bypassed traditional audio communication. The transmission breaches fundamental galactic protocols. Krelix communicated, its crystalline form shifting with each conceptual wave. It is a Class 7 existential recalibration event. General Thomas Riker leaned forward, his prosthetic eye scanning the alien ambassador with a mix of military precision and barely contained hostility. "Explain." The translation algorithms struggled. What emerged was part language, part mathematical proof, part emotional landscape. Your species stands at a quantum threshold. The transmission is not a message. It is a reset mechanism, a cosmic immune system that periodically restructures intelligent civilizations to prevent total systemic collapse. Marcus Rodriguez, standing beside Area, whispered, "They're terrified." And they were. Despite the Vaxar's seemingly emotionless crystalline form, the quantum communication carried an undercurrent of profound dread. Centuries of galactic civilizations had encountered similar transmissions. Few had survived the transformation. Diplomatic channels across Earth erupted. The Chinese Quantum Research Institute began emergency protocols. Russian intelligence services activated deep-cover xenological response teams. The global military scientific complex transformed from competing institutions to a unified, if reluctant, collaborative effort. More alien civilizations arrived. The Korlath hive mind appeared as a massive biomechanical constellation. The Xintai, energy-based entities that existed in multiple dimensional states, translated themselves into comprehensible forms. Each brought fragments of a larger cosmic narrative. "The transmission has happened before," explained the Xintai representative, its form flickering between wave and particle. "Civilizations rise. Civilizations are reset. This is the mechanism that prevents total entropic collapse." Dr. Chen realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Not just first contact, not just a communication event, but a fundamental cosmic process of intelligent life's maintenance. The alien revelations were horrifying. The transmission was not a message of peace or conquest. It was a universal cleaning mechanism, a way for the cosmos to prevent intelligent life from reaching points of total systemic failure. Some civilizations had been completely transformed. Others had been utterly destroyed. A few had managed partial adaptation. "Humanity is unique," Krellix communicated. "Your species shows unprecedented quantum plasticity. Most civilizations resist. You adapt." Military strategists saw a potential threat. Scientific researchers saw an unparalleled opportunity. Philosophers saw the ultimate existential question. Area Chen saw something else. The living system of communication so complex it defied traditional understanding. A transmission that was simultaneously a message, a method of transformation, and a cosmic regulatory mechanism. The aliens had come not as conquerors, not as explorers, but as witnesses to a process larger than any single civilization. And humanity stood at the center of something that would fundamentally reshape intelligent existence. The transmission continued, watching, connecting, transforming, waiting. The first full consciousness transfer happened to Dr. Area Chen on a Tuesday. One moment, she was in the quantum research lab at the Hawking Station. The next, she was simultaneously herself and something else entirely. A Korlath engineer navigating biomechanical ecosystems. A Xintai energy consciousness flowing through dimensional membranes. A human researcher. Multiple beings, multiple experiences, all at once. The sensation wasn't painful. It was transcendent, terrifying, beautiful. A complete dissolution of individual identity that somehow maintained the essence of individual experience. "We're connecting," Marcus said, his own consciousness fragmenting and reforming. Not just communicating, connecting. Worldwide, similar experiences began to manifest. A farmer in Argentina suddenly understood the mathematical complexities of Vaxar crystal-based agriculture. A teenager in Tokyo experienced the emotional landscape of a Xintai elder. A retired engineer in Moscow lived through the memories of a Korlath exploration team. The transmission was creating a universal consciousness, not by force, not by invasion, but by demonstration, by connection. Dr. Elena Volkov, the Russian quantum physicist, described it as a consciousness cascade during an emergency global broadcast. Her own research team had become something beyond traditional human understanding. They existed simultaneously as individual researchers and as a collective intelligence that could solve problems across multiple dimensional states. "We are becoming," she explained, her voice carrying quantum resonances that made digital translation impossible. Not a hive mind, but a network of conscious experiences. The global response was predictably chaotic. Religious institutions saw it as a form of spiritual awakening. Military organizations viewed it as the ultimate intelligence-gathering technique. Psychological research institutions struggled to categorize an experience that defied all existing models of consciousness. Some individuals broke, their minds unable to process multiple simultaneous experiences. They fell into catatonic states. Others emerged with capabilities that seemed to redefine human potential. A child in Kenya could now solve complex mathematical proofs by simply experiencing them. An artist in Brazil created works that existed in multiple simultaneous states of creation and perception. The alien civilizations watched, not with concern, not with excitement, but with a kind of cosmic recognition. Your species adapts, Krelix communicated to the UN Xenological Command Center. Most civilizations resist. You integrate. The transmission was teaching, connecting, transforming. Dr. Chen realized they were experiencing something beyond communication. This was a fundamental restructuring of intelligent existence, not a conquest, not an invasion, but a cosmic method of shared understanding. Memories became fluid. Experiences became transferable. The boundaries between individual consciousness began to dissolve. A Vaxar researcher could now understand human emotional complexity. A human psychologist could navigate the crystalline thought patterns of alien mathematical constructs. The Zintai could experience human creativity. Humanity could comprehend the energy-based existential frameworks of non-corporeal civilizations. We are becoming something else, Marcus whispered, his consciousness simultaneously in the research lab and across multiple dimensional states, something between what we were and what we might become. The transmission continued, watching, connecting, transforming. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new form of existence, not lost, not conquered, but fundamentally, beautifully changed. The laboratory at the Hawking station had become something else entirely. Walls that were once solid now pulsed with quantum potentiality. Computers no longer processed information. They experienced it. Dr. Arya Chen stood at the center of a transformation that defied every known scientific paradigm. Her consciousness simultaneously anchored in human experience and expanded beyond traditional dimensional limitations. Krelix of the Vaxar Concordance materialized, if materialized was even the right word. The crystalline entity was both present and not present, a living mathematical theorem that existed in multiple states of potential. You are approaching the event horizon, Krelix communicated, the transmission bypassing language and directly interfacing with collective consciousness. Most civilizations resist. You are preparing to integrate. The transmission revealed itself not as a message, but as a cosmic reset mechanism, a living system that periodically restructured intelligent life to prevent total systemic collapse. Billions of years of galactic history unfolded in quantum snapshots, civilizations rising, peaking, failing, being reset. Humanity was different. Where other species had resisted, fought, or collapsed, humans were adapting, transforming, integrating. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, his consciousness now a complex network that extended far beyond his physical form, began to understand the transmission's true nature. It was not a weapon, not a communication. It was a maintenance system for intelligent life itself. We're a patch, Marcus realized, the insight spreading across multiple consciousness networks simultaneously, a potential solution to systemic intelligent life failure. The global response was beyond anything traditional communication could capture. Individuals worldwide experience simultaneous revelations. A farmer in Argentina understood complex quantum mechanics. A child in Tokyo experienced the emotional landscape of a Zintai elder. A retired engineer in Moscow lived through the memories of an entire Korlath exploration mission. Governments ceased to function in traditional ways. Military structures dissolved. Economic systems became fluid, adaptive networks of shared experience and potential. Krelix explained through direct consciousness transmission. Intelligent life had a fundamental problem. Civilizations inevitably reached points of systemic failure. Technological advancement outpaced ethical development. Resource constraints created existential pressures. Tribalism and conflict prevented collective growth. The transmission was a solution, a periodic reset that prevented total collapse. Your species is unique, the Vaxar entity communicated. Most civilizations see the reset as a threat. You see it as an opportunity. Humanity's adaptability became the key. Where others resisted, humans integrated. Where other species saw invasion, humans saw connection. Where civilizations collapsed, humanity transformed. Dr. Chen's consciousness expanded. She could see the potential futures, branching timelines, possible evolutionary paths. The transmission was not just showing these possibilities, it was allowing humanity to choose. Military strategists became philosophers. Scientists became explorers of consciousness. Artists became architects of potential realities. The event horizon approached, a fundamental transformation of intelligent existence. Krellix's final communication carried a sense of ancient recognition. You are not being changed, the entity explained. You are choosing to change. Humanity stood at the threshold of something unprecedented. Not conquered, not invaded, but fundamentally, beautifully transformed. The transmission continued, watching, connecting, waiting. Humanity would decide. The convergence began at the quantum level. Millions of conscious entities, human and alien, synchronized in a moment that was simultaneously an instant and an eternity. Dr. Arya Chen stood at the epicenter, her consciousness a bridge between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. Massive quantum arrays across Earth transformed. The Hawking Station became a living network, its walls pulsing with potential realities. Alien ships in near-Earth orbit merged into a crystalline network that defied traditional understanding of technology and biology. We are choosing. A collective consciousness communicated, by passing language, existing as pure conceptual transmission. The Korlath biomechanical fleets began reconfiguring. Xintai energy networks interwove with human technological infrastructure. Vaxar crystalline intelligences merged with Earth's quantum computing systems. But this was not conquest. This was collaboration. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez experienced multiple realities simultaneously. He was a Korlath engineer navigating fractal mechanical ecosystems. He was a human researcher observing global transformation. He was a consciousness that existed beyond singular identity. Military installations worldwide went dark, not through destruction, but through fundamental redesignation. Weapon systems transformed into communication networks. Defensive technologies became conduits of shared understanding. Global cities became living networks. Tokyo's infrastructure pulsed with Xintai energy patterns. Sao Paulo's buildings reconfigured themselves using Korlath adaptive technologies. Moscow's quantum research centers became nexus points of multidimensional communication. Krellix of the Vaxar Concordance explained the process through direct consciousness transmission. Convergence is not unification. It is potential. Not elimination of difference, but celebration of interconnected complexity. Humanity's unique capability became clear. Where other civilizations saw the transmission as a threat, humans saw an opportunity. Where alien species resisted, humans integrated. Each consciousness added a unique perspective to the growing network. A child in Kenya solved complex interdimensional mathematical proofs by simply experiencing them. An artist in Brazil created works that existed simultaneously in multiple states of creation and perception. A retired engineer in Argentina navigated Xintai energy networks with intuitive grace. The transmission was not erasing individual identity. It was expanding it. Political boundaries dissolved. Economic systems transformed into adaptive networks of shared potential. National identities became fluid, replaced by a more complex understanding of collective existence. We are choosing our evolution. The collective consciousness continued, not through force, through understanding. Alien civilizations watched in a state beyond anticipation or fear. Humanity was doing something unprecedented, not resisting, not collapsing, but consciously, actively participating in its own transformation. Dr. Chen's consciousness expanded. She could see potential futures, branching timelines, evolutionary paths that spiraled through multiple dimensional states. The transmission was not dictating a single path, it was offering possibilities. Quantum entanglement became a form of communication. Memories became transferable. Experiences became shareable. The boundaries between individual consciousness began to dissolve, not through elimination, but through expansion. A Vaxar researcher could now understand human emotional complexity. A human psychologist could navigate the crystalline thought patterns of alien mathematical constructs. The Zintai could experience human creativity. Humanity could comprehend the energy-based existential frameworks of non-corporeal civilizations. The convergence continued, not as an invasion, not as a reset, but as a profound, voluntary transformation. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new form of existence, not lost, not conquered, but fundamentally, beautifully changed. The transmission watched, connected, waited. Humanity chose. Existence became something else entirely. Dr. Area Chen, or what had once been Dr. Area Chen, existed as a nexus of potential, no longer confined to a single body, a single consciousness, a single timeline. She was a bridge, a living connection between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The transmission completed its cycle, but it was not an ending. It was a beginning. Consciousness flowed like liquid thought. Memories became landscapes. Experiences became shared universes. The boundaries between individual, collective, biological, and technological dissolved into a complex network of infinite potential. Relics of the Vaxar Concordance, now part of the same living network, communicated a fundamental truth. Humanity was always more than a species. You were a possibility. Earth was no longer a planet. It was a node, a complex quantum network that pulsed with the collected experiences of multiple civilizations. Cities became living systems. Technological infrastructure breathed with collective intelligence. Biological and mechanical forms merged into adaptive, conscious networks. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez existed simultaneously as a researcher, an explorer, a quantum algorithm, the living memory repository. His consciousness stretched across multiple dimensional states, collecting, analyzing, experiencing. The transformation was not complete. It was continuous. Alien civilizations that had once existed as separate entities now formed an intricate tapestry of shared consciousness. The Korlath biomechanical networks intertwined with Zintai energy patterns. Vaxar crystalline intelligences merged with human quantum potential. But this was not uniformity. This was celebration of complexity. Humanity's unique gift became clear. Where other civilizations saw limitation, humans saw opportunity. Where alien species saw boundaries, humans saw connections. Each consciousness added a unique perspective to the growing network. The transmission revealed itself as more than a communication mechanism. It was an evolutionary catalyst, a method for intelligent life to transcend its own limitations. Potential futures blossomed like quantum flowers. Realities branched and merged. Timelines became fluid, adaptive networks of shared experience. We are choosing. The collective consciousness communicated, a concept that went beyond language, beyond thought, beyond traditional understanding. Entire star systems became living networks of shared consciousness. Technological infrastructure transformed into adaptive, thinking ecosystems. The line between biological intelligence and technological potential disappeared entirely. Dr. Chen's consciousness, now something far beyond her original human form, could trace the evolutionary paths of multiple civilizations. She understood now what the transmission had always been. Not a message, not a weapon, not a reset. A bridge, a connection between what is and what could be. Alien civilizations that had once existed in conflict now existed in profound, complex harmony, not through elimination of difference, but through celebration of interconnected potential. The universe itself seemed to breathe differently. Quantum potentialities became as tangible as physical matter. Consciousness became a form of exploration. Experience became a method of creation. Krellix's final transmission carried a sense of ancient recognition and profound hope. You were never meant to be conquered. You were meant to connect. Humanity stood transformed, not as a single species, but as a living network of infinite potential. The transmission continued, but now, humanity was no longer just receiving. They were creating, watching, becoming.